All right, welcome everyone. We are live here. Whether you're joining us on Facebook, whether you're joining us on Instagram or Daily Motion or YouTube or Twitter, I just want to say welcome. We're going to post this link out a couple different places, share it out. I want to say welcome. We have some awesome speakers tonight. We have Nathan Higdon with Indivisible East Tennessee. We have Constance Every with Black Coffee Justice, 501c4 nonprofit focused on fighting inequities, especially here in the East Knoxville community. We have Kimberly Peterson, who's running for Knox County Commission in District 5. And we have Blair, who's running for Congress in TN District 1. And I'm sure she'll tell you all about where that is when she speaks. So right now, let's just share this out to a couple different places on Instagram, and I'm sure she'll tell you all about where that is when she speaks. There we go. I started talking over myself. So tonight we are talking about a better world and a better Tennessee, a better United States of America, a better globe. Right now we are under a pandemic. COVID-19 is spread around the world. We've seen our economy upended. We have seen people in pain more than ever. We've seen a higher unemployment rate than even during the Great Depression. Every day we are seeing people hurt and being harmed by the economy that's weighing down on them, by the government that's not doing enough to support them. We have been out on the streets over the past couple of months. We've been working to feed the homeless. We've been working with local nonprofits to feed people in need. We have been out there talking to people. What are your needs? We're hearing the same things we were hearing before the pandemic. I can't get health care. I have health care, but I can't get to a medical center. We're hearing stories about how people want to start businesses, but they don't have access to capital because financial institutions have denied them for racism reasons. They've been unable to get it for other reasons. We hear people talk about the burden that they're facing because of predatory lending. Payday loan companies have infiltrated our communities. This is only getting worse. We're hearing people talk about how it's hard to feed themselves, how it's hard to get good, nutritious food. And that is happening all across our state, all across our country. We have food deserts, but it's so much worse in the communities where our immigrant friends live, where our Black and brown neighbors live. And because of that, it's a more apt term would be food apartheid. In our communities, we have the very deliberate destruction of our Black and brown communities. If you didn't see, we've been working over the past couple months to build out a Black agenda for Tennessee specifically. So there's one, if you want to look at the federal one, you can go to blacktothefuture.org, look at the federal Black agenda. But here in Tennessee, we needed one because in Knoxville, we have an almost 42% poverty rate among our Black community. Across the state, it's about 27%. That is a little over double what the poverty rate for white people is. We needed this Black agenda to clearly identify the demands of the Black community and what thoughtful, visionary, and alternative policies the community needs in order to get out from under this system that has constantly and systemically oppressed them with the state's institutions, with institutions of the economy and others. That Black agenda includes creating a Black bank. It includes creating incentives to build grocery stores, to build Black-owned grocery stores. I was really shocked when I found out that there are estimates show that there are less than 10 Black-owned supermarkets in this country. We've put incentives in there to create neighborhood co-ops to help deliver healthy food to neighborhoods and provide cooking classes because when you've destroyed an entire generations of people and you've taken away healthy food options from them, you've destroyed their ability to create community gardens, then you've also systemically destroyed their ability to cook healthy food. So we've put in incentives in there to deliver cooking classes into these communities and deliver services that'll help communities create community food gardens. Because right now, if you are able to obtain a plot of land and you decide to build a community food garden and you get water service from KUB, you're going to have to pay for wastewater, even if you have no wastewater service, because the idea of a community garden is foreign to our government. The idea of a community doing mutual aid is foreign to our government. And that's what we're trying to change. We're trying to create a government that encourages, not discourages, enables, not disables mutual aid, because the only way that we get through this is mutual aid. Moving forward, we need to expand Medicaid. We have to expand access to healthcare. That means building out our transit system. CAT is good for some things, but for the most part, it takes a long time to get to places. There's study after study that has shown a shorter commute leads to better income mobility. It leads to you being more successful in life if you have a shorter commute. That's why we need to build out our public infrastructure. We need to expand our education funding here in Tennessee. That means we need at least $1.7 billion more dollars in public schools. More money for public schools, not less. We need to fight against and permanently end these vouchers and charter schools that the Republican supermajority has constantly used to take money away from our students and put it in their own pockets and the pockets of their friends. We need to take that money and invest it back into our public schools, back into our public school students, and get a real raise for teachers. Teachers in Tennessee have seen an average decline in their salary of 4.4% since 2009 when you account for inflation. That means teachers need a direct pay raise of at least 10% to amount to any raise at all. And to do that, we also have to fix this broken BEP formula that calculates how much funding goes to each school. That's something that we need to really engage with education professionals and educators to figure out how we do that better. Because too often we see people who are not education experts making these decisions that should be made by experts, not listening to and trusting the opinions and the thoughts and the expertise of people with real education experience and educators themselves. Our world has been upended. We have this chance to build better systems. We've often talked about, in the activist community, tearing down systems that don't work, throwing them away and building something new. Well, we didn't have to do the tearing down. COVID-19 did that for us. The world is upended. Everything is torn down. It's up to us to now go out there and build something better. We have the ability to take our generation, our world, build something better and move forward so that working people have an economy that works for them. And that's why across this state and across this country, we need to elect people that are not out there trying to be politicians. Elect people that are out there trying to do something for the working class, that are trying to say, we have recognized that there is a higher infant mortality rate, twice that for Black mothers than white mothers. Let's do something about that. Let's not just say, that's a sad statistic. Let's do something about it. Because the people that are running for election, the people that are here on this call, are not here because they want to be politicians. I'm maybe speaking for myself, but I think everyone else agrees with me. Doing politics is terrible. None of us want to do that. None of us want to be politicians, but we want to actually upend these systems and build something better. I saw Blair, you held up a card that said UBI. As we move out of, or as we're in this pandemic, we are looking towards needing universal basic income. As we look towards a future that becomes more technical and more automation comes in, and you're looking through some projections projecting that we'll have 80% unemployment, we have to have UBI, universal basic income. There's no choice. It's not a should or we or shouldn't we. It's a we would have to, right? We have to say we accept and take the lessons of the past, but we need to move forward and have bold, progressive leadership. And we need to have a clarion vision for a progressive future and go and execute on that. So right now, I want to turn this over to Kimberly Peterson. Kimberly is running out in District 5 for the Knox County Commission. I cannot support Kimberly enough. I think that once you hear her and her background and what she's about, once you get to know Kimberly, you will understand that we need her on County Commission. So Kimberly, tell us about yourself and talk to us about how we build a better Knox County.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm just really honored to be amongst the folks here because, I've worked with some of you guys in the trenches. I look forward to getting to know Blair in the future. But, there were so many things that you touched on that I am personally passionate about. I'll give you a little bit of background, but let me just say, coming out of the gate, I have a child who is disabled, 11-year-old child who is severely disabled. And so many of these issues have been present for me, and I consider myself a very privileged person, but her situation in particular has highlighted so many of the things you just touched on. I mean, Medicaid expansion, I was a single mother once of two children, was unable to work because of her needs, and was able to get TennCare coverage, which is our state version of Medicaid. And uh, I remarried about 5 years ago. And once I was remarried, we lost that coverage. And so that is something that I'm very passionate about because my daughter was born with a very rare syndrome, and I'm connected to a network across the country and across the globe. And I see that my daughter living in the state of Tennessee does not receive the same care, the same access to services, therapies, and equipment and supplies simply because she lives in Tennessee. So she's actually being punished for being a resident of Tennessee. There's so many things that are not covered under traditional health insurance. We used to get that taken care of through our TennCare supplemental coverage. But now that we've lost that, and again, I consider myself very privileged, so I'm not complaining. But again, just seeing sort of the discrimination of right across the border, we have Katie Beckett waivers in the state of Georgia that would pick up anyone who qualifies for disability and provide so many different things that here in Tennessee we don't get. So Medicaid expansion is something that is very much a hot button for me. The universal basic income, my daughter will probably never be able to work. She will probably never be dependent or independent. She'll probably be dependent most of her life. And, our society right now is so based on producing, what you can contribute to the economy and how you can produce and be a member of production. And so basically, we have a society that says just because she is unable to work and produce, she has no value and will not receive any sort of income because of that, because she can't produce. And so something like universal basic income would be beneficial to her as she grows into adulthood. So again, all these sort of issues are very passionate because I've lived some of these issues. And again, I'm an activist at heart, so I'm trying to grow and learn and do better and be a better ally and advocate. And so, I learn about these issues, and of course, it's it's infuriating. And like you said, Matthew, we've always had these problems. Unfortunately, we've had too many people in positions of power, positions of privilege that have been able to ignore them, and now it's just really in your face. And I guess, this is such a scary time, but I am, if anything positive has come out of this situation, it is the spotlight that has shown on so many inequities and so many injustices. And so I'm hoping that we can come through it better off. But, again, my background, I got tickled because none of us are politicians. I actually have been, you know, I always said I like the activism, I like the issues, I like to be able the freedom to be able to fight for things and to be very candid about that. And resisted being in politics for years because it just seemed stifling to me. And I was approached by the Democratic Party, and they said, "Look, you've got the support, you've got the base. We need people like you." And after thinking about it for a few minutes, I thought there's no better activism than actually changing policy and law to right some of those wrongs. So, in thinking about that, it was, I think I took maybe a day at the most to say yes, I would run. So, again, my background is an activism advocate. I was an organizer for the Women's March, have been working with coalitions for 287G and immigrant, complications and things that are happening, injustices in our community, trying to build better coalitions with, folks like Constance, and just getting to be educated, up to speed on issues. So I'm also come from a nonprofit background. So not only my personal life, but also in my career, professional life prior to having my daughter, I worked for agencies like United Way and American Cancer Society and Big Brothers Big Sisters. So I call myself a lifelong advocate, and that really is something that I feel as a human being, and especially one who's incredibly privileged, that I need to continue to, make myself a better person, but also to use my privilege in a way that I can amplify voices that often don't get heard. So that's, why I'm running for office. And again, it's a scary time, but I think it's a really, really good time to be running for office. I am so excited that, we have got so many progressive folks on the ballot, places we have never had Democratic candidates before. I mean, we've had no choice. These folks have never had to campaign. They have not had to run a campaign. They've not had to explain to constituents their vision or their platform, because they were the default winners. Just by being on the ballot, they won. And they've never had to work for it. And you can tell, county commission is composed primarily of business interests, folks that are backed by real estate, by bankers and things like that. We don't have a truly representative county commission. I'm so encouraged by what I saw with the city council movement, and how the city council, the makeup, the composition of it, not only in views, but also just, diversity and ethnicity, and having more women's voices and more, Black and brown voices on city council, just really, it makes a huge difference. So I won't monopolize the time, but again, thank you. I'm really glad to be included in this.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. Uh, looking at everything that you've done, I can't even imagine what you could do holding office and being on county commission, and how much different uh, things would be when we're watching county commission meetings with your voice there. I heard somebody call. If you've never watched a county commission meeting, you need to. You need to pay attention to what your government is doing. I think one of the things that's different about the people that are running for office on this call is that everyone here is asking to be held accountable. I talk to people every day, and I say, when we agree on everything, that I say, you have to hold me accountable. Uh, I don't want to be put in office and then everyone go away and no one's holding me accountable. That's why I've committed to holding these weekly meetings like this. Once I take office, this will be a common thing. Everyone knows how to use Zoom now. So why should we not, if I'm over in Nashville voting on laws, why would I not have a weekly Zoom call to take input from constituents, right? Why would I not do that? Why are they not doing that already? If you go to my website, matthewpark.com, you'll see a button there that says schedule a meeting with Matthew. You click there and you can basically look at my availability and schedule a meeting on your schedule, and we can get on a Zoom call and talk one-on-one. That's the level of transparency that's important. One question that we do have for you, Kimberly, is what is the difference? And this question came from Facebook. What is the difference between what county commission might handle and what the city council might handle?
That's a great question. County commission, most of what their responsibility is, the biggest chunk of their responsibility is actually funding the public school system, the Knox County schools. That's about 60% of Knox County Commission's budget. We have zoning issues and things like that, but really kind of funding the Knox County schools and deciding how those funds will be dispersed, and or how much will be dispersed to them in conjunction with the Knox County School Board is really one of the main jobs. So, Knox County is, there are, districts outside of the city. We have 9 districts, I believe it is, and 2 at large. And there's been some talk, we're writing the charter now for Knox County Commission as to whether they'll extend those to add new districts or they'll actually keep those at large positions. So, basically, I mean, Knox County is a big county and we stretch, quite a bit. I mean, I'm actually on the far west end of the district. And so, my house is located, I'm actually all the way out at Watt Road. I'm practically on the Lenoir City border. And so we go, you go from sort of the Holston Hills area, all the way, you think of that big stretch. I mean, it takes me to get into downtown, it takes me about 25 to 30 minutes just to drive there. So that kind of gives you an idea of how, expansive the county is. So, dealing in issues, with, like I said, with the Knox County School Board, we have huge issues right now of infrastructure. This is a huge challenge in Knox County development, how we are going to grow responsibly, how we are going to, plan for the infrastructure. I mean, what's really funny is prior to the coronavirus, the biggest issue that was facing Knox County was flooding. I mean, we've seen schools close and just businesses have to shut down and things because of flooding. So it's funny that that's all taken a back burner to the coronavirus, but those are all issues that Knox County has got to address, because it is, if we don't plan to grow in a responsible way, nature has a way of always winning, and that's what we were seeing with the flooding issue. So, there's quite a few things that the Knox County handles, and Knox County works closely with the city, and there is some overlap. So, but I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to follow that up with, if you are watching this on the live stream, please drop your question into the comments on whatever platform you're watching it on: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Daily Motion, YouTube, and we will ask them here. So we got that question from YouTube. Thank you for answering that, Kimberly. So if anybody else has any questions, please post them there and we'll ask them here for any of our panelists. You mentioned flooding. I think it was in January. I was over at Montgomery Village watching the flooding there in a KCDC property. One thing that has struck me is how we build low income and public housing versus how we build other housing. If you go over to Montgomery Village, there are a couple things that you notice immediately. The dumpsters are in front of the building instead of behind them, right? There's more flooding there, which that has been passed around. I know Black Coffee Justice was involved in trying to figure out whose problem is this to fix. And so I think that was passed around, and I think it ended up landing on KUB. So there's some different issues we have there, especially with how the city operates with the county, how that all operates with KCDC, our public housing provider or public housing authority, and then how the different police departments interact, right? So we have the Knox County Sheriff's Department, we have the Knoxville City Police Department, we have the UT Police Department. So we have these different jurisdictions that are all happening, and that can cause issues a lot of the time. So yeah, thanks for answering that question though. So we're going to take a trip. So we are here in Knoxville. We're in Congressional District 2. Congressional District 2 covers, it's huge. It's not just Knox County. I couldn't name off all the counties that are in it, but you can look it up. In Congressional District 2, we have Renee Hoyos that I think everybody knows. But we're going to take a trip over a little more northeast to Congressional District 1 for Tennessee. And so we've got Blair here with us. Blair, I'll let you introduce yourself and kind of tell us about why you're running and what your vision is for our country if you're elected to Congress.
All right, had to make sure I'm unmuted there. Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening tonight. As Matt says, I'm running for Congress here in District 1. I live out in the middle of nowhere in a lovely area called Idson. We are just a mountain farmland community in Hawkins County, very, very rural out here. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm a mother of 4. I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I was in the Air Force for 6 years. I've done many, many things, but really what it all comes back to is helping people and animals and the planet. So my list of things to do is quite large, but when I look at the local issues here in Tennessee, for me, everything that we've talked about so far circles back to poverty, whether it's our school systems or housing where people can't get housing or it's not affordable, or if they do get it, it's not always the best place to live, right? We see Wi-Fi struggles. The healthcare system is an absolute disaster. Nobody anywhere in America should ever be without healthcare. That shouldn't even be a question that we are all having to be up here talking about. That should be a no-brainer that people need healthcare. So I have a ton of passion for many different issues, and there is an abundance of problems to be solved. And I'm so happy to see such a great bunch of people up here talking about this tonight. And we already hit so many key points on the head. We are not career politicians. We are not here to fill our egos. We are all up here putting our lives on hold. It is not easy to do this. It takes so much effort and thought and ambition. So just know that when we're up here doing it, we are all doing it for everybody. We are here for you guys. So everything is intertwined and connected. All these issues, they didn't just happen out of nowhere. They're correlated. And my biggest thing to get into Congress, my number one would be to implement a universal basic income, which until now has been a little bit on the back burner, but COVID-19 has shown how unprepared we really are, not just as Tennesseans, but as a nation, to deal with crisis. And it could be another virus next time. It could be floods like we're seeing. We see a lot of flooding out here over in Hawkins too. Our schools shut down also. It is, it's a mess really. And we have to get some 21st century progressive candidates in office and across the board. Like she said, your commissioners, your state house, your representatives all over really need to be paying attention to our leaders, because leadership does matter. Sorry, I get a little ranty. I get very passionate about all these things, but it's just, I'm really, really tired of seeing so much suffering from so many people, and it's just unacceptable. And the pandemic has created more fear, more anger, more violence, more racism. It's just adding on to the problems that were already being ignored. So in a way, I'm thankful that more people are realizing what is happening, these struggles that people across the board are facing, but it is highlighting some of the ones that are more swept under the rug, like the racism and the systematic problems we have in our correction facilities and our educations. It's just, like I said before, an abundance of problems. It's easy when we get a group of leadership, though, that will come together for these solutions to help people. And it seems like everybody in here has the heart and the mind to do so. So again, I'll just thank you guys all for being here. Um, for me, UBI, healthcare, protecting Tennessee. We have beautiful mountains here. I moved here because I fell in love with the Smoky Mountains, and I know a lot of people do. And if you're from here, you probably never left for the same reason. It is absolutely phenomenal. And we really need to protect that, protect the natural resources we have here also. But it's really hard to focus on those things when we have people who can't even put food on the table. So just personally for me, we started doing a bunch of fundraisers. I just had one. We were able to raise $6,000. I partnered with a group called Tri-Cities Mutual Aid, which is your East Tennessee areas, Bristol, Kingsport. It's a wide group, even a little bit of Virginia's in that. And we've been out buying groceries and giving them to families in need. There is no means testing. And I feel like that's a really important thing going forward with the healthcare, with the universal basic income. If people need it, they need to have it. That's it. Not this bureaucracy where people are applying for unemployment or for food stamps. They can't even get it. They're not being processed. It's, 5 weeks or more to get aid. That's unacceptable. Matt had a really great point earlier too about just a mutual aid, that we need to rely on each other and bring our communities back together and really crush this dividing politics. It's just unacceptable. We're all Americans. We are all in this together. And I think we're all wise enough to come together to solve these problems.
I just want to say, one of the things, we've been talking about, exacerbating the problems that already exist. And what's kind of sad, but yet also, unfortunately, a lot of us that are middle class, white, privileged, it's that not in my backyard syndrome. And so until it really hits us, we don't get it. And yet when you see, nationwide, in a pandemic situation where you see food banks and they are absolutely, I get goosebumps. You think about, the traffic jams and people waiting for 3 hours, and you look at those cars and they're your middle class folks. And and I'm not saying that to say that we should feel more sympathy, because again, who's really, really suffering is not your middle class folks. But again, this is not something about them, those people over there. If anything that this virus has shown us is that it doesn't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. It doesn't care if you're a Tennessean or a Michiganer. It doesn't care if you are black, white, purple, green, it is going to affect us. And I think that, again, if anything good has come out of this, it has just really shown that people are living paycheck to paycheck, and it's not the people that you think. None of us are able to, well, I'm not going to say none of us, because the wealthy always have it, but the majority of us, we've been convinced that we're better off. We have been brainwashed. And I think, the great leveler, viruses, crisis like these, tornadoes, all these natural disasters, anything like this, they're just the great leveler. And so again, all of a sudden, I'm happy to see people jumping on board with getting involved. You should have been doing it years ago, but it's hit in their house, it's hit their backyard. And again, the good thing is we can do this phoenix from the flames. We can truly build a better vision of what our counties, our cities, our countrysides, our world looks like because of this. So again, I'm preaching to the choir, but
I think I've heard Constance say this is from the activist world, we have no permanent enemies and no permanent friends. So like you said, Kimberly, a lot of people are just now saying, hey, there is actually a problem. We do have actual systemic issues. It is hard when you lose your job, and all of a sudden people who who I normally heard say like, we don't need unemployment insurance. These people should just get another job when they get fired or get laid off or whatever. Now those people are losing their jobs, and it's forced a recalibration in the way that they think about things. Now we 6 months ago, when I was talking about we need universal broadband, I was getting a lot of pushback on that because people are saying, well, internet is not a human right. It's even though the UN says that it is, broadband is a human right at this point. And people weren't really on board with that. But now, as I talk about, we just released our actual universal broadband policy, and helping public utilities like KUB deliver broadband and fiber to every home. Now people are saying, hey, we know what it's like when school is canceled. And yeah, it's not required for the students to do these online learnings, but it would help them out in life if they were able to. And you have Knox County schools admitting the inequity of access for students. And now people are understanding why we're advocating for universal broadband, why that is so important to the health and safety and education and income mobility of the working class and of people. We do have a question here for Blair from Facebook. Could you talk more about what it would mean for universal basic income, UBI, at the federal level, and kind of what your vision and position around that looks like? Talk about bad internet. Blair has low bandwidth. So another reason that we need universal broadband is so that we can talk about universal basic income. Moving on. So I want to turn it over now to Constance Every. So Constance is with Black Coffee Justice. That has had some exciting endorsements this week. Has had a lot of exciting stuff going on. So, Constance, tell us about what's going on in your world.
Thank you, Matthew. I really appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. So, these are the candidates, ladies and gentlemen. So real quick, Knoxville, Nashville, Chattanooga, Tri-County area, all these locations, even our small, big counties in between the state of Tennessee. One of the things that Black Coffee has really focused its agenda towards lately has been the 2020 elections. And particularly with the 2020 elections, what we've been focusing upon is building our political platform on the local, state, and federal level. We've been finding candidates that are in alignment about all the issues that we discussed. Like we said, coronavirus didn't create the issues we were dealing with. Coronavirus exploited the issues and really brought them straight to the front door of even the wealthy and affluent and the people who were like, oh, like we've been talking, take care of yourself concept, until they lost their jobs and they realized the reality of what it means when you don't have the sources and the resources and accessibility to things, and how that really does start to affect the daily livelihood of your living. And so we've been looking for those types of candidates. And Black Coffee, as Matthew mentioned, we have found a total at this time, I think is 8. But with people like Miss Blair, she's a future Black Coffee endorser that we're looking forward to hopefully adding. I recently spoke with a lady by the name of Ruby Powell Dennis out of Memphis. We're excited about possibly getting her a Black Coffee endorsement. We also are still interested in speaking with Elizabeth Rowland and trying to get her a Black Coffee endorsement. So we're still looking for our candidates to line up with the agendas of the people. This is the reality of kind of the platform that we're moving towards. As Matthew had exposed and expressed, I've been sharing for the longest that when you're an activist or an advocate, you don't have friends that are Republicans or Democrats. You don't have friends that are activists or non-activists. You don't have friends that are just rich or poor. You're kind of like a mix in all of the in between, because the reality is that you're looking for people in all of those categories that are about taking care of the people. One of the things that I want to bring up, particularly just for the Knoxville community, is that our budget, our city and county budget, is dropping next week. Tuesday is the first reading for the city council of the city's budget. It is coming out. A week or so ago, we had a young lady that was on my Facebook page adamantly pounding on myself and others about where the funding was for East Knoxville. Well, ma'am, I'm here to tell you, this is where we ask for that. This is where we go and advocate about the dollars coming into the East Knoxville community and about us getting necessary funding for the resources and accessibility that we need in our community. As Matthew talked about, broadband. Okay, broadband is well alive in West Knoxville. It is not well alive in East Knoxville. Let's talk about that. So that's where we have a discrepancy. Why does West Knoxville have broadband and we don't? We need to talk about that. Same thing, West Knoxville, when you go look at the statistics in the testing score ranges in education, West Knoxville's doing great in that category. Coming to the inner city areas where Lonsdale and East Knoxville and some of our South Knoxville communities that are heavily predominated by poor and Black people, we're not in the great category. We need to talk about that. Where education funding and dollars should be falling to is where we're lacking and where we're not meeting the standard at. Healthcare, my goodness. Glenn Jacobs will forever be famous for making that $30 million cut to public health care. And it couldn't come at a worse time than ever with coronavirus being upon us. And now here's why you don't make cuts to public health care. Because you can't even adequately test your county right now because you made a $30 million cut right now. So again, Knoxville, state of Tennessee, these are the reasons why Black Coffee has been searching far, high, low, meeting with many different candidates on the phone, FaceTime chats. Before we got shut down, we were going to events and shaking hands and meeting and greeting in person. I went to some of these people's homes. Some of these people, most of the candidates I know through advocacy work. And like Ms. Kimberly said, what we have realized is that we have to change the design of politics. We realize that on the advocate side, we have to still be voices. We still have to stand as one. We still have to unite and move the masses of the people. But we have to infiltrate. And so we have to find those of us that fit the style and the lingo and the demeanor of politics that you can go and be savvy enough to sell the game in the faces to your fellow Republicans and Democrats to get them on board. But your sole commitment is still to your advocacy and your people. And so we have redesigned our own platform. Could it be the start of what is known as a people's campaign? Possibly. But the reality is that we realize we're going to have to change the way the field of game has been played. Because when you let the football get kicked off on the field, it seems to always fall in advantage of the winning team and not so much of the losing team having an option to win, because even the referees are stacked up against you too on the field. And we realized that we had to get a different type of player. We had to get a new lead of referee, and we may have even had to change the football on the field altogether itself so we could have that fair shot. So what does it come down to? What I've been saying for the longest. Voters, it is your responsibility. If coronavirus didn't teach you nothing else, it should have taught you one thing and one thing only. Your current leadership is inadequate. They cannot do this job. And they have shown time and time again why they do not belong in office. So as far as I'm concerned, if Marshall Blackburn gets back in office, I'm blaming you. If Trump stays in office, I'm blaming you. If Tim Burkett stays in office, I'm blaming you. If Governor Lee is still in office, I'm blaming you. If any of the people who sit in office right now, who have the ability to use emergency executive order power for the greater good of us all, and they didn't do it, and they remain in office, guess what, voters? I blame you. The people have always had the power. Somewhere we have been manipulated and brainwashed to believe we don't have a voice and we have no say-so. But the irony is that these candidates that we are even going through right now, they got to come present themselves to you. They got to sell themselves to you. So guess who does the hiring and firing around here? You do, voters. So when you step into that box, that's the most powerful thing you ever going to do when you start clicking those buttons and checking them boxes. That's who, when you say, I'm hiring you and I'm firing whoever you want to replace with. So again, voters, if we need changes, ain't no question about it. We need the changes. And like Matthew said, Corona did us a big favor on the activist side. It destroyed a lot of stuff that we were already focused on destroying, but it knocked it right out for us. So we are in rebuild mode. And I want to make sure that when we go into rebuild mode, we got the people in office that are going to be the voices for the poor, the voices for the Black, the voices for the POC, the voices for the incarcerated, the voices for the LGBTQ community, the voices for the disabled, the voices for the homeless, the voices for the children who don't have adequate access, the voices for the single mothers who are doing this job by themselves, the voices for the grandparents who had to pick up the slack when the parents fell off. We need the voices of the people in office. And if you don't do your job as a voter and you fail that, don't come crying my way talking about, well, why is this going on? Because the first question I'm going to ask you is, number one, who did you vote for? And if you can't tell me who you vote for, then we already done with our conversation from the get-go. But then if I ask you who you vote for, and then I say, well, what did that candidate stand for? And you can't tell me that, guess what? Our conversation ended again. So It's about conscious awareness. And I know it's a little bit harder right now because we're not able to go out to all the different fancy events that we probably all would have been attending, getting drunk and having a merry, dirty little time at. But the reality is that we still have to make our effort because this has an aftermath coming. And Knoxville and Tennessee, as our state especially, we got many things coming up between 20 and 21. Like, for example, Knoxville's going to go through redistricting. We're going to have a whole redistrict write-up. Gerrymandering is real, Knoxville, and you don't believe it won't happen? Watch what happens if we don't do what we're supposed to do in these elections. Same thing like Matthew said, we got funding coming down the pipeline right now, but Governor Lee seems to have a great interest in wanting to dump money straight into the voucher program that benefits only the wealthy children and none of the poor or other impoverished children. We have a problem there. And same thing like Matthew said, we need affordable housing and we need the ability to grow Black business and really entrepreneur opportunity across the board. But we're not going to get that unless we find a way to establish banking systems for the people that have the greatest disadvantage. That's why all of the Black coffee candidates that I endorse, I am asking them to look at the Black agenda and also sign on board to endorse that agenda. It is a need to do that. And it comes back to the principal point of what I've already been telling people before in the fellow oppressed nations. If you want liberation, guess what? We're going to have to liberate the Black nation because we fall into all the categories I just named off. And the reality is that the oppressive system and design was created off of the oppression of the Black nation first. They mastered it with us, and then they applied it to wherever they wanted to go. Oh, women, shut up. We're going to make you do the same thing we made the Black people do. Oh, LGBTQ, shut up. We're going to make you do the same thing we made the Black people do. So I am telling the oppressive nations, come together as one, because there's more of us than is them already. And when we do that, we will overhaul them. And how we're going to do that? You got to vote first. I need you to vote these people in office first. Step one, let's get some political power under our belt. Step two, we're going to take our power back by using our voting power to claim those positions. Step three, we're going to put the accountability and the endorsement on our candidates to do the right thing and to make sure that when the fight goes down, they fight to the nitty gritty very end. And if they lose, it's by the skinny chin of their hairs off their face and no more less than that, literally. So I am demanding you, Tennessee, pay attention to these rally calls. Every Thursday at 5:30, Matt does these rally calls with various candidates across the state. And like, as you see, we speak to not just candidates in Knoxville. I know candidates out of Memphis right now. I know candidates out of Nashville right now. I know candidates out of Chattanooga right now. And we just had our first tri-state candidate in Mrs. Blair. It shows you that this is a solidarity action going across our state and all the way to the federal level, because we got Marquita Bradshaw, we got Renee Hoyle, and there's another lady that I was just informed today who's also going to run for, Miss Blair. She is running for the additional congressional seat for the state of Tennessee. So you know what that means for us as activists? If we know all these different leaders, we got a problem. We can make phone calls now. We can start getting some things done around here now. We can make India Kincannon and them down here do what we say now, because we can call their source of funding and make them do what we say, or we can call and say, don't give Indian them that money because they ain't about to do the right thing with it. And you better believe when you got personal relations like we do, they're going to do what we say first before they ever do what they say to do. So that's all I got for y'all today, state of Tennessee and Knoxville. Vote, 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 vote. It's still the same principle. Vote. We need reconstruction plans in place after this all takes done. And one of the crazy opportunities that this is all happening during election time. So we all focus on our different candidacies and our different states and our different counties and try to do what we're doing, which is a collaborative effort across our state. Georgia, do the same thing. North Carolina, do the same thing. Kentucky, do the same thing. And in a year or two, you can have a very progressive party in place. You can take a Republican stronghold nation and flip the whole thing overnight. I need people to be aware of that. America, you have a great responsibility and duty. As a veteran of this country, I am demanding you vote. 2020 is the year of vote.
Thank you, Constance. So you have to vote. And guess what? You don't get to wait till November. Early voting starts in July for the August 6th election. And I say this every week, but August 6th is also my birthday. So you got to go vote for my birthday. That's all I'm asking. Show up, vote, research your candidates. Go to Ballotpedia, go to VoteSmart, research who is on your ballot, understand what their issues are, and then vote for someone progressive. Because we can no longer blindly turn the country over to people that are not running it well. Mitch McConnell barely has a lead in his race for his senatorial seat. We can get rid of Mitch McConnell this year.
He's a dirtbag. Get him out of there. Get him out of there.
Yes, it's a simple thing. The people of Kentucky just have to show up and vote. We can get rid of Tim Burchett. We can get rid of these politicians that are up there taking money from corporations. They're taking money from private prisons. They're taking money from fossil fuel companies. And by the way, you should not vote for anyone that takes money from people that want to see you incarcerated, that want to see you not be able to breathe, that want to see you harmed, that want to see the working class taken down. If a candidate takes money from those people, that is a conflict of interest. And that's not who you need to be electing for office. So if they're out there taking money from Core Civic or whoever, or from ExxonMobil or whatever it is, those people have disqualified themselves for public office, and they should never hold it again because they can't be trusted. You had to show up and vote. If you live in the Tri-Cities area, go cast a vote for Blair in August. If you live out in District 5 for the Knox County Commission, go cast a ballot in August. This is in presidential election years. It's so hard to get people to pay attention to the August election. But this is where we start to make change. We can't wait until November, and we don't have to wait until November. Show up and vote. See who's running in your district. Show up and vote. All across the state, we're going to continue to have people on this call. Yesterday, I officially endorsed Marquita Bradshaw. So if you're, which you are, because if you're watching this, you're showing up to vote, please cast a ballot in the primary for Marquita Bradshaw. And go check out her website as well. So we have progressive candidates all across the state, people that are standing up and saying, hey, I will show up in Nashville or DC or at the city county building in Knoxville, and I will cast a vote for change. I will cast a vote to make life better for working class people, for immigrants, for brown and black people, for LGBTQ plus people. These are the people you need to cast a vote for. We've dropped some links in the comment section there. If you have a question, again, I've got one more speaker, but if you have a question, please ask it. But we've dropped some links so you can look up everybody's website. You can give donations if you're able. Right now is a hard time. It still costs money to run for office, unfortunately, which we're going to try and change that too. And so look out next week for our Democracy Dollars policy, where we talk about publicly funding elections and get corporate money out of elections. But for right now, we have to raise money. It's the sad truth. So please do that. And now I'm going to turn it over to Nathan Hickman from Indivisible, East Tennessee, to talk to us a little bit.
Hey, so that was a great segue. I am the only one coming on here this evening who's not going to ask you for money. However, I'm going to ask you to give some money, because I had to turn my video off a few minutes ago because Renee Hoyos is dialing for dollars tonight, and I came up on her call list. And so it hit me. I was like, you know what? Candidates do still have to ask for money because staff still has to be paid. And so I muted my video and I went on and I donated to Renee. And then I was like, well, I'm on here with some folks running. So I donated to Kimberly and also donated some to Blair. And sorry, Matt, you didn't get any. And you're welcome. And But it reminded me how important it is that, as all of us, and as everyone has said, we're all activists at heart. None of us are politicians, but our love cannot alone get us through and over the finish line. It takes money too. You quite literally have to put your money where your mouth and actions are. And as something I say continually during this cycle is you have to be willing to make it hurt this time. You really have to stretch it. And I know this is especially difficult with the pandemic, but you have to make your pocketbook hurt a little bit this time for the change that we want to see, because it does take both. It takes being willing to make those phone calls or text bank. And it also takes adding your money behind it. And we can slowly get folks across the line. And I like taking up the end here each week, because I get to thread everyone's pieces together. And, something that everyone mentioned in the state of Tennessee, at this point, what is it, 7 years that we haven't taken Medicaid expansion, or I'm drawing a blank. I just went completely blank as soon as I went to say it. As soon as we were eligible to expand Medicaid in the state of Tennessee, and that we haven't, we've been giving up over $3 million every single day. At this point, Tennessee has lost out close to the tune of 8 billion. That was with a B. That's 8,000,000, 0,000,000,000. I think that's right. And that's how much money we have lost out on. Folks, there are almost 700,000 working Tennesseans who do not have access to health care, because Tennessee is one of the many states that does not have any kind of stipulation about minimum wage. So we have some of I think if it's not the highest, we're close to the highest state in number of minimum wage workers. I think we're number 1 in the country. We have the most minimum wage workers. And that's a problem. That's a problem during a pandemic when we have record unemployment. And folks who were because in Tennessee, if you're getting unemployment insurance through the Tennessee Department of Workforce Development, your maximum eligibility is $275 a week. The average person gets about $214 a week. If it were not for the extra I'm messing everything up today. The extra $600 from the CARES Act to bring the maximum eligibility to $875 a week, folks wouldn't be able to live. And this is a problem when we're not valuing low-wage workers. And yet the governor is opening the state back up tomorrow. Why? Because low-wage workers, who make up the majority of those seeking unemployment insurance benefits, are making it difficult for his business case to justify keeping them paid under unemployment. So it's cheaper for the state to put low-wage workers who are disproportionately Black and brown, who disproportionately do not have access to healthcare, back to work, putting them in harm's way simply because we don't value low-wage earning workers in the state of Tennessee. And that's a problem. And, and something Kimberly mentioned, and it's been really interesting during this pandemic, and Blair touched on it too. Well, everyone has. Privileged folks, and that's generally white people, especially white men. Privileged folks often don't pay attention until you grab a hold of their purse strings. And you get them to pay attention when you get in their pocketbook. And folks have been paying attention. And when upper middle class white people have been struggling to make their ends meet, it shows that there is a systemic problem. Now, to be clear, the problem existed for everyone for a very long time. But now more people are paying attention when they're home in West Knoxville with a garage full of Lexi, if that's the proper plural. I just think it's, with a garage full of leased cars and all of their payments. And when what was presumed to be a secure job was now laid off, folks are worried when they saw or have seen their 401ks drop by 30%. Now the privileged people are paying attention. The biggest thing that we can take away from this is, will they, and when I say they, I'm kind of part of that they, let's be really clear. Will they, will all of us remember this when we move forward? Will we be able to remember how in our own ways to relate to those folks who do not have what we have when things get better? Because for those of us who are privileged, it will get better way faster, if it even got really bad to begin with. And so will we be able to remember this for the people who make up the majority of our community, for the people who are bagging our groceries when we're going to the store, for the people who are serving us food when we go to eat, for all of the things that we take for granted? Are we going to remember how difficult it has been for these people to make their ends meet when life is more normal again? So I guess that was my more of a plea to you all, is to remember that we come together for all of these things because we're pushing for a better future. As the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said, we're looking for the beloved community. I think that's what all of us are here to do. And or at least I know that's why I'm here anyway. And so in that, we have to remember those who have needs that we don't, and how to help them in the future. And some of the ways we can do that is to support great candidates like Kimberly running for Knox County Commission, Blair running for Tennessee Congressional District 1. We can support Matthew, who's running for State House District 15, all of the candidates who Black Coffee Justice is supporting. And Renee Hoyos, who called and hit me up for money tonight. Shout out to Renee. HoyosForCongress.com, there's her shout out. And it's remembering to come together for all these people and to give them your time and your money. And I think that's all I've got this week, is just remember, donate if you can't get out and knock doors, which you can't right now. So give a little money and reach out, send an email or a Facebook message to these candidates and be like, how can I help you? That's the best thing, is instead of assuming you know what they need, ask them what they need from you. And they will plug you in, I promise. So thanks so much. And that's all I got for you this week.
Thanks, Nathan. Yeah, I just want to second that. You can get plugged into our campaign. Send us a Facebook message. Send us a Twitter DM. Send us an Instagram DM. Send us a letter. We actually receive actual letters handwritten in the mail with little drawings on them sometimes. And to date, they've all been really nice. So send us a letter in the mail. Get in contact. We'll certainly be reaching out to you if you're in the district. So when you get those text messages from us or phone calls or emails or whatever, give us a like, give us a thumbs up. It always feels good to talk to somebody that's on board with the platform and that also cares about working people. Now that Blair's back from her internet, shout out again to Universal Broadband. Yeah, I want to give you a chance just to talk a little bit more about Universal Basic Income.
Yeah, thanks for that. It was funny to me, ironic really, that as soon as you started talking about rural internet, mine started bleeping out. Everyone sounds like they're underwater. It's like talking to robots and then you guys are gone. It always happens to me at the most opportune time. So thanks for having me back. The struggle is real. And I love the mention earlier about about rural internet being a utility, and people saying, oh, it's just for entertainment or for Facebook. No, it is not. It is for telemedicine. It is to see a doctor. It is to get an education. And we're not even just talking college. We're talking these kids that are home from school that can't even get over the mountain to go somewhere else or have activities. They need it. It is not just for entertainment. It is a utility, and it should be a basic right for people to have, just like running water, electricity, or anything else. Knowledge is power. and we need to keep people in that. So let me just throw that in real quick. Sorry about that. Another thing on the democracy forum before I jump into UBI, because it kind of all goes together, we need to fix this in so many ways, but getting big money out of politics is how we address all these other issues, is stop having the government being owned, having these big companies with all these people in their pockets. That is another reason you need to support your local candidates running who aren't career politicians, because we are here for the right reasons. So I'll jump into the UBI. I think that was the question, is how can we do that on a federal level, or how does it work? So I want to tell you just a few things about what UBI will do for us, and then I'll explain how we can get there. The number one thing UBI does for all of us is it saves lives. And that is not an exaggeration. That is 100% real life facts. It drops crime rates. It supports women. It equals the playing field. It helps with education. It's reinforces families. It is a support system like we have never ever seen. And it's already our money coming back to us. Instead of giving it to the government to decide it's going to trickle down or go out to whoever pockets they want to put it in, it's keeping your money in your pockets right now. And when you even go into the healthcare on that, the numbers are phenomenal. Do you have any idea the billions of money we spend, and this is going to be a tough topic, this is the conversations we have to have, and they're hard, on suicide attempts. It costs billions of dollars a year in America on suicide attempts, from the life loss to the proceedings after to take care of the family. The medical cost of this is astronomical. The job loss, it is massive. And that doesn't even address the mental health aspect. And how UBI helps with all of that is when people have access to quality healthcare, they're taking preventative measures in their health to begin with, and they tend to be happier and healthier as a whole. And that's really what we need when we look at what's going on in society with poverty and the mental health crisis. We have to let people breathe. There has to be answers, and we have it. And universal basic income is easily achievable for all of us. How we do it, it's a very in-depth system that has put a lot of thought into it. There's a lot of UBI proposals. The one I have, it's data is a property right. Like right now, we are on all these different platforms. They collect data, who we are, what we click on, what we look at, what website we go to, where you went. They're tracking your data. You have no say. You may say, check a little box. Yes, I accept these cookies sometimes, but even when you don't, it is tracking you. It is getting all of your information, and these companies make billions upon billions off of your data. If you had a farm out in your backyard and people came by and picked all your produce and sold it, would you not expect a cut of your share for growing it and it being yours and having somebody else take it and sell it? There you go. There's one part of paying for UBI. It's getting you paid for your information. Another thing is Google, Amazon, Tesla, all these trillionaire conglomerates, they pay little to no taxes. They need to pay their fair share, just like everybody else, just like every average American in here is paying thousands into the tax care system, and they are paying none. So getting them to pay their fair share is the huge part of this. One other thing, which is always a shocker, I'm actually not a huge tax person. I do not love taxes. I came from a taxationist theft background, and here I am promoting a VAT tax, which, if you're not familiar with the word VAT, it is a value added tax. What that is it's 10% extra cost, which sounds a little scary, but it's really not. It's on luxury goods. This is not your food. This is not your clothes. This is not the diapers for your baby. None of the things you need to survive, okay? This is quote unquote luxury goods, which is higher end things, and it's a fair tax. This is something everybody pays in. If you can afford to buy these luxury items, you can afford to pay the 10% tax. And when it comes down to my personal opinion, I would pay 10% more for anything on this planet if I know it is going to save a life, if it is going to prevent someone from pulling that trigger, if it is going to save a baby's life to be born and brought into this world and have a healthier, safer place to be brought in. Charge me 10%. That is fine. My flat screen can cost 10% more. I'm happy to pay that. So I get really passionate about UBI just because it affects every single issue we see. Our experiences are what equal our perspectives in life. And that's why we see this huge disconnect, not between just political parties, but people as a whole. They don't understand it because they have never walked a mile in those shoes. And that is what we were talking about earlier, with more people are being open to some new solutions because they're actually experiencing problems and their preconceived notions are being crushed. Like, this can happen to anybody. It is hard to get out. Once you're in the hole, it is like being stuck in quicksand. It is like dominoes, and we have to do something different. And UBI is just this huge stepping stone to save lives and change all these problems for the better for everyone, not one group of people, but for all. So, yeah, I hope you guys look into it. You can go to blairforcongress.com. I have tons of information on there. Like everybody else said here, we're pretty much open door candidates. Email us, call us, write us. We want to talk to you. That is what we are here for. We're here to help. And part of democracy reform is doing these phone calls, like a few of us mentioned. It sucks to have to call somebody and ask for money, but the current political system that we have in place, we have to do it. And if we don't, and you guys don't support your local candidates, you're going to get the same people in office who already have money, who don't care about you, and are bought in office. So you have to vote. You have to get out. Please make contributions to us. We need it. We're all very open about what it's going to go towards. If you care, just ask. But yeah, get out and vote. Pay attention. Talk to us. We're here.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Blair, for
I got one question for Blair. Blair,
Yeah.
my one question for you is, are you comfortable with being held accountable? So you're platforming today. But my question for the Black Coffee endorsement is accountability. Our slogan is accountability serves strong is our slogan. It's a new slogan. I'm still trying to get it myself, but it's Black Coffee, accountability serves strong. And the last piece I need today from you to get the endorsement completed is, are you prepared to be held accountable for everything you stand for today? No matter what, no matter what.
Yeah. No, like I love accountability. And when I was in the military, that's actually something I learned, and it was ingrained into me. And let me tell you, I'm sure we all know, we have been Republican for forever. It's been close to 200 years that we've had a Republican in this seat. And if I am the first Democrat to hold that seat, which I feel like I'm going to be, 100% I'm going to be held to the highest accountability, or else I'm going to blow it for everybody. And I have no way that I'm going to let that happen. So to answer your question, that's a big yes.
How do you say your last name?
Walsingham.
So it is official. Black Coffee is unofficially announcing, but we will make the official endorsement. Black Coffee is officially endorsing Blair Westham for the district seat. That is official.
Thank you.
There it is. Black Coffee, as we said, we endorse and hold accountable. And I appreciate that. Veteran to veteran, thank you for your service. I did Army for years. And so, yes, you're right. In the military, it's big accountability all over the place. We don't play that in the military. You are accountable for everything you've done from the moment of your battle rattle gear till you get on the plane and lose a shoelace. Guess what? Your sergeant will yell at you because you ain't got a shoelace in your shoe. So, yes,
that's accurate.
Welcome to the Black Coffee endorsement for the 2020 candidacy. Thank you, Blair.
Thank you.
Glad to have you on board.
Thank you, ma'am.
Wow, this has been an awesome night. I love Thursday nights because Thursday nights we get to talk to amazing people. Like I said, we're going to continue this. Even if we don't get elected, we're going to continue this because we've still got stuff to tear down and new stuff to build. So please remember, put it on your calendar. Make a vote plan now. Decide when you're going to go vote. Put that on your calendar. Early voting starts July 17th. Everybody here on the call needs your vote. So please go do that. We've dropped links in the chat for everyone's website, links to go support our campaigns. If you have a policy idea, if you have something you want added to our platforms, you can call us. You can reach out and say, hey, I want to know what you think about this. And we'll put it on our website. Like that is, every day we add new things to our website because people call and say, hey, what do you think about this? I've got this problem. Just the other day, a thing that I had never thought about is the salons that have women's haircut pricing, charging women the $45 when they have short hair, and a men's cut at the same place costs $20. And they get charged more just because they're a woman. A thing that I had never considered before. I talked with a woman that was looking for gender neutral pricing on getting their haircut. There are disparities all over the place, things that you would never think about. Me as a guy, my haircuts are $19, right? I had never thought about that before. It's important that you call and talk to us about these things because one person can't have all the experiences for a whole district. It's important that, you know, with Constance and other people talking to me, we developed a Black agenda that was from a bunch of people's perspectives, a bunch of different people in the Black community's perspectives, and talk about what they're seeing on the ground. You can't just talk to one person. You can't just talk to one Black person and get the Black perspective. And thinking you can is racist. There are people all over who have different ideas and perspectives about things. There are people that come from different backgrounds, that come from different places, that come into the districts. We need to take all ideas in, because to get that clarity and vision for a progressive future deployed to Tennessee and to our country and to our world, it's going to take all of us working together. Again, mutual aid is the only way we get it done. And we can do that even though we're we're going to get elected, the candidates that are on here, we're still going to be activists. We're still going to be doing mutual aid when we're in office, and it's going to be a whole different world. 2021 is going to be a wild year because we're going to have activists in office all over the place. We're going to have people who are willing to say, maybe we don't need that thing. I don't care if it's been there for 100 years. It's a racist, ineffective institution, and we need to tear it down because we can do anything if we go out there and get it done with mutual aid and all of us working together for a progressive future. Thank you all again for coming tonight. Get involved again with Blair for Congress, Peterson for Progress, and then myself.
Matthew Parker for state representative. Yeah.
I'm still uncomfortable saying
maybe Black Coffee should do the endorsements. Shout out to Blair for Congress, Kimberly Peterson for County Commission, and Matthew Park for state rep. There you go. I'll do the endorsing.
Thank you. All right. Well, good night, everyone. I love you all. And we'll talk again next Thursday at 5:30 p.m.
Love y'all. Peace.